Chapter 8. The news of Ramar's transformation raced quickly through the world in between until all had heard about it. Some believed it, and some did not. "It is the work of the devil," said the penguins, "for a rabbit to have wings in the first place." And with that they nodded and chattered among themselves, still perspiring as before. "It is merely a trick," said the others. "And a sham," said some. But those who knew Ramar had neither question nor doubt, not for a moment. They knew that his wings were genuine, alive, and aglow with all the colors of the universe, with warmth, with love, with compassion and understanding. They could feel only love for him, and should there be questions about his wings, the love was answer enough. They gathered around him, and they touched his wings gently as one might touch something that is sacred. And the touch gave them a share of his knowledge too, and a sense of belonging to something greater than themselves and what they were before Ramar came. Ramar understood their longing, and he walked among all the creatures who came to see him, and he shared their joy and the lessons of their lives, and he sought to help them and to answer their questions. And all the while, Lydia and Dove and Leonardo never left his side, because they too wanted to help and to be close to their friend. Each of them knew that one day soon Ramar would leave them for his first life on earth. And while that was a mission that all must answer, and they knew that as well, it did not diminish the sadness they felt. The questions were many. When would his life on earth begin? And who would guide him to the place he belonged? But no one knew, least of all Ramar. He knew only that he was tired, and he wanted to rest, alone perhaps, and away for a time, even from those he loved. The place he yearned for most was the meadow where he had first appeared on that warm spring day in the hollow log that was home. It seemed so long ago, yet everything about it was as fresh in Ramar's mind as moments just past. He knew each rock, each nest of clover, and he could smell the grass and the warm brown earth from which it grew. He wanted to go there because if there was an answer to the riddle of his wings and why he bore them, he would find it there. So knowing this, he left his friends and returned to his childhood home. "I will just be a day or so," he told them. "Not more than that, I promise." Once home, he found the hollow log where he had slept as a young growing rabbit. It seemed so small now, but even so, it had weathered well and would serve as a pillow for a rabbit now grown. So Ramar fell asleep, his head against his favorite log, and as he dreamed of his younger days, his magnificent wings folded around him and covered him like a blanket, glistening in the afternoon sun. Evening came, and he still slept, and then through the night and the morning. Finally, late on the second afternoon, he was awakened by a strange kind of silence around him. He knew without opening his eyes that nothing was moving, neither squirrel, nor chipmunk, nor mockingbird. Even the wind he loved made not a sound, and the crickets held their songs inside themselves as though waiting for something to happen, or for someone to come. He did not know which it would be, but when he opened his eyes, he saw a radiant white lamb approaching from the distance, a lamb with 2 red feet. He had come down from the hillside far beyond the meadow, and he walked with a grace that Ramar had never witnessed in any other creature. Ramar saw too that the creatures of the meadow walked and crawled and flew about the lamb as though he were a prince or a teacher, and occasionally he would stop and speak with one of them. Ramar could not hear what they say, but he could feel the reverence that every creature held for the lamb. They loved him. They loved him more than they loved themselves, he thought, or life itself. Ramar watched as the lamb came nearer. He marveled at his beauty. How could such a creature exist? He asked himself. None could be so pure as he, or hold such wisdom, or emanate such love. Ramar was sure of that. He was also sure that whatever waited ahead for him, whether life on earth or something else, the lamb would be part of it always. Their souls were connected, linked in a way he could not describe or prove to himself, but which he knew existed. That was all that mattered. Good evening, said the lamb when he reached the spot where Ramar waited. I have heard of you and your rainbow wings, and I have come to meet you. His voice was warm and familiar as that of a long-time friend, and yet Ramar had never heard it before. My name is Ramar, the rabbit replied, and as he spoke, he instinctively lowered his head, as though bowing before someone more worthy than he. The lamb felt awkward. I am not more worthy than you, he said, sensing what Ramar felt. I am whatever you are. No more, no less, just different. But who are you? Ramar asked. Have we met before? The lamb folded his legs and sat down on the grass. I have been called many names, he said, but none of them really matter. Some call me the shepherd now. Ramar could not help but smile. A sheep who is also a shepherd, he asked. Yes, said the lamb, for life has taught me that each of us must learn to care for ourselves, and to care for ourselves, we must also care for those around us. Thus, I am a sheep, and also a shepherd. Ramar could feel the wisdom of this, clear through to his bones. He knew the shepherd was not like any other creature. It was not that he looked so different except for his 2 front feet, which were crimson red, and his eyes, which were crystal blue. There was something else about him, too. Something he could sense, but not describe, so he did not try. It seemed to Ramar that the shepherd, like Lydia, was neither young or old, but a timeless creature, childlike at times, when he spoke of love, and ancient at times, when he spoke of truth. Ramar felt good being near him. He didn't know why, but he believed that if he cut himself on a twig somehow, the shepherd could touch the spot where he hurt, and the hurt would go away. It would bleed no more. And this was true. He also believed that if he hurt inside, and his heart was heavy with grief and disappointment, the shepherd could touch him there as well, and his heart would lift itself and sing. And this was true. He also believed that if the shepherd wanted to leave the meadow and walk across the pond without sinking beneath the water, he could probably do it as easily as Ramar could walk across the grass. And this was true. There was nothing that Ramar could ask of the shepherd that was not in his power to grant. No question, it seemed, that he could not answer. And yet, with all his power and wisdom, there was a warmth about him that transcended even these, and the warmth was love. Some of what Ramar sensed in the shepherd was what other creatures now sensed in him, since he had gained his rainbow wings. So in all these ways, in their warmth and love and their wisdom, the shepherd and Ramar were quite alike. Some even thought them anointed, destined to become one. Ramar asked the shepherd if he knew the secret to his rainbow wings, and the shepherd answered that would he think about it, Ramar would find the answer for himself. I will tell you this, the shepherd said. Each color in your wings embodies a single truth for you and others to see and remember. Can you tell me these truths? Asked Ramar. I can tell you to look for yourself, the shepherd smiled. And Ramar turned to look at his wings as best he could, folding them forward as far as they could reach. He looked first at the blue, and it seemed like a window that let him see beyond where he was and what he knew. He understood immediately that truth is not a static thing, like a wall or a rock or a rule. Truth is a window that opens our minds to new ideas and discoveries, and maybe, most of all, to changes and choices. Truth is a growing thing, he said to the shepherd, and the shepherd agreed he was right. So one by one, Ramar peered carefully through all the colors of his wings, the reds, the greens, the purples, all of them, and as he did, he remembered what he had been taught by those he had met. Through the blue he remembered the turtle, Micah, and the shell that had grown around him because he had not shared himself with others, nor touched with others, or let others touch him. Is it one of the truths that we grow by sharing ourselves and our ideas with others? He asked, and the shepherd said it was. Are all truths as simple as that? Asked Ramar. As simple as that, the shepherd answered, because the essence of what is true is something that never changes, only grows. We can live alone and think only of ourselves, or we can share what we feel with others, and the more we share and care, the closer to grace we become. But what is grace? Asked Ramar. He had not heard of grace until now. The sheep, who was also a shepherd, explained that grace is knowing a oneness with the everything that is. It is how our spirits feel once we have lived all our lives on earth and understand all the lessons now crystallized in Ramar's rainbow wings. Are there many who have known this oneness? Asked Ramar. Just a few, said the shepherd, and that is all. Ramar remembered the penguins and what they had told him. The penguins believe that God will punish those who do not do what he asks, said Ramar. Could this be true? It was something that sometimes still worried him. No, you cannot be punished by something you are a part of, the shepherd replied. Each of us is free to shape our lives in any way that we choose. Should there be punishment, it would take away from our choices. And should we not have choices, we could not learn or grow to grace. But what of the sins the penguins described? Ramar asked. Can we do what is wrong and not be punished? Who is to punish you? The shepherd asked in return. God would punish me, Ramar ventured. That is what they told me. They said that most of the world believes that this is true. Should I not listen? Can your right hand punish the left? The shepherd asked. If you remember the splinter of light you saw, you will know that God is not separate from you, but part of you. This means to fulfill the promise of life, you must live without fear, and you must follow your own free choice in all things, not hurting those around you or imposing your will upon anyone else. If there be sins, then these are sins, no others. You mean it is wrong to ask others to believe as I do, if what I believe is true? Asked Ramar. It is only wrong to force them, the shepherd replied, or to interfere with their choices. When you do this, you interfere with their growth and bring harm to yourself as well. Just as you should hurt another or take what is theirs. Ramar remembered what Lydia told him. Each thing you give returns to you in kind, she had said. Give love and it comes back to you multiplied again and again. Do harm and it comes back as well, though many times over. In this way, it is you who chooses your fate by what you think and feel and do. You and no one else. Ramar had believed his friend completely, and yet, when all these same words were spoken by the shepherd, they reached into his heart and became part of him. He understood them in ways that he had not understood before, as though he had lived them. Each color of your wings is a color of truth, reminded the shepherd, and is now a part of your spirit, so you may teach these lessons to others when you are born as a person. Ramar was not sure that he knew the lessons well enough to serve as a teacher, or that he might even know how. He was not a teacher, or a minister, or a spirit of great wisdom. He had not even been a person yet. It will be difficult, the shepherd said. But I can tell you, it is the childlike mind that sees the truth and the open mind that receives it. If you center yourself in the lessons you have learned, the words to teach them will fall to you as naturally as the rain will fall on the embered land. You need only have faith and listen. But who will listen to me? Asked Ramar. A few will hear you, said the shepherd, and maybe only one or two. Just remember that once it is said, truth reaches out to those who need it, and those who need it are many. With that, the shepherd reached over and kissed young Ramar softly on the cheek, as though bestowing a blessing upon him for those times when he would need it. Is this goodbye? Asked Ramar, and the shepherd told him it was. And with those words, Ramar felt a sadness within him, as though his heart would wither and die, and tears filled his eyes so that he could not see. Please, he said to the shepherd, if I go to be born as a person, could you not go with me and help me teach what we have learned? I cannot go with you, the shepherd replied. I can only tell you that once when I went to earth, as you will go, I spoke of the things that we have learned, and I taught them in parables and stories. Then one day, when my lessons angered those who believed a different way, they nailed my hands to a cross of wood, and there I died. Ramar looked down at the shepherd's crimson feet, and the sadness was multiplied. It was a sadness that overwhelmed him. The shepherd looked into Ramar's face, and he was moved by the tears that fell from his eyes. Do not be sad, my rabbit friend, he said, for many have gone to earth as I have gone. There was Moses, and Muhammad, and Buddha, and the Swanee prophet. I cannot name them all. I can only tell you truth is found in many faces, behind many eyes, and you must always be ready to see it. Do they remember you yet? Asked Ramar. Or has everyone else forgotten? They speak of all of us, the shepherd replied, and there are some who call us and pray to us, and who build churches in our names. We are both honored and disappointed. But how could one who is honored be disappointed? Ramar asked him. Is honor not love in its way? Of course, replied the shepherd, but I am honored for many things I did not say or believe, and for many events that never happened. Because of this, my words and my lessons have been lost and forgotten, as have the words of many. I know it is time to speak them again. But I do not want to leave you, said Ramar, and there was pain in his voice and sorrow in his heart. Do not be sad, said the shepherd, for all who live will die, and all who die will live again, and all who are friends will always be friends and never part. Love holds us together for always. Ramar was comforted by that, but not completely. If you cannot go with me, maybe you could guide me, he said, and that would be all I need. Then I will help guide you, the shepherd agreed. When you are born, a part of me will go with you, and when you think of me, you will feel me inside of you, and when you need help or counsel, I will whisper in your ear, and your heart will hear me. I promise you that. Ramar was then content, because he knew that whatever journeys were his to make, and whatever hardships were his to conquer, he would not be alone. It will soon be time for you to go, said the shepherd, and Ramar said he was ready, except he wanted to see his friends for just a moment to say goodbye. So with that they left that part of the meadow where Ramar first came to be, and they walked together, side by side, a rabbit with rainbow wings and a lamb with crimson feet, to the place where Ramar knew his friends were waiting.